Hey everybody, welcome to Whole30 Day 16. We are officially on the downhill side of this thing, and I don't know about you, but I am super excited about that. And I'm also excited because tonight I'm fixing one of mine and my family's favorite dishes, and you've probably seen it if you've ever excuse me, I have a cold. I'm probably going to cough. If you've ever looked on Pinterest for Whole30 or even paleo recipes, you've probably seen egg roll in a bowl. And I have my own version of it. I called it Pork and Veggie Unrolls. I just didn't want to call it egg roll in a bowl because everybody else called it egg roll in a bowl. And I really think that it is best made with ground pork. That is traditionally what the meat that's used in egg rolls in a Chinese restaurant, and it's the flavor that I like the best. So I put that in the title. However, you have ground turkey or you have ground beef. You could use all sorts of different meats. But I am trying to get that egg roll flavor, and this is what I think gives it to me. So I have 1.5 pounds of just plain ground pork, and I'm going to add that to my, this is just a heavy stainless steel skillet. And I cooked this on Facebook Live, I don't know, several months ago, and that video is up on YouTube. However, that was the first time I'd ever made this dish, and I was following somebody else's recipe. And whereas it tasted great, we were really happy with the result, it is kind of cumbersome. There's all this, you know, you're cooking the vegetables, you got your stuff going in that skillet or wok, and then you've got your meat going over here, and then you have your sauce going over there. And I have, because we loved it so much, I make this regularly, I have figured out a couple ways to streamline the process. One thing I have not changed is that I still cook my meat separately because I just like it nice and well browned, and I think that that works best in a separate skillet. I get better control over how my veggies are cooking and how my meat is cooking if I cook them separately. Now, my meat was frozen. I forgot to get it out of the freezer until late last night, so it is still pretty well frozen. And I'm just going to see, you'll see me every time I add, or just about every time I add something to my skillet, I will be adding some salt and pepper just to build those layers of flavor. And then this pot back here is simply my chicken broth that would go in the sauce, but I'm just going to add all the sauce ingredients right into my stir fry, and we get all the same flavors, and it's just all mixed in, and that eliminates one cumbersome step. So there's chicken broth. I had it in my freezer, and again I forgot to get it out, so I'm thawing it out in the pan. So if you've watched any of these videos, you know that I do have this tabletop burner that I have been cooking on because it just makes it easier to do the videos. But after setting the smoke detector, smoke alarm off so many times, I just knew that with this particular dish where I'm using the wok, and the whole point of the wok is it's made out of this carbon steel, and I can get it really hot, and I get a good smoke on my oil, and then I get a good caramelization on my veggies, and I want all of that. And without the vent hood over my island, I knew I would just be smoking up the whole house. So I've just adjusted things a little bit. I know it's not quite as good for the video, so please bear with me. But I'm just going to use my actual stove, and then I will actually additionally have to turn my vent on a little bit. But so I'm going to get started with some coconut oil in the bottom of my pan, and I've just got to not forget about my pork over here. If this would have been so much easier if I had thawed it. But, you know, this is real life, and nobody's perfect. I try to write down in my calendar. I'm so old-fashioned in that I like a paper calendar, and I use my calendar on my phone just like everybody else, but I don't trust it like I trust my paper calendar. And I make a plan for myself for every day, the things that I need to get done, and that includes when I make my meal plan on the weekend. Then I go through the weekdays and say, okay, on Monday I need to get this meat out of the freezer, and on Tuesday I need to get this meat out. Because I go and I do all my shopping on one day, and so that meat is not going to last in the fridge till the end of the week. So most of it goes in the freezer, and then I get it out as I need it. But I forgot to get this out. So already this is, my coconut oil is starting to smoke, so I want to hurry up and get my onion going. So my recipe called for onion in the stir fry and then also onion in the sauce. Let me see what it says. 1 medium onion in the stir fry and 1 small onion in the sauce. And so because I'm combining these, I'm just using 1 medium to large onion. And that will be fine. That's perfectly fine. We get lots of great onion flavor. And also I will garnish with some green onion at the end. And so that will sort of punch up the onion flavor right there at serving time. And so I'm not missing anything if I'm not using 2 onions. Okay? So we're cutting back on some of the ingredients, which saves us money. It saves us time. It just makes it a little bit easier. Okay. I hate these little onion skins. They get stuck to everything. Alright, so I'm going to do just not a tiny dice. I cut each half into 3 sections. And I want to make sure I get that little core piece out. Whoops. And this also will make it easier for my onion haters to pick out if they feel the need. But the good thing about this dish is with the cabbage, the onion kind of blends in. Okay, so here goes my onion. Alright, you see that smoke? That's good. That means my oil was hot, which is what I wanted. And I am very upset with myself that I left 2 important things at rental houses this year. I left my favorite can opener at one rental house, and I left my special wok wooden tools at another one. So I'm disappointed to not have those. Okay, so my onion is going. I'll get some salt and pepper on there in just a second. I just want to keep my pork going over here. My broth is just about completely defrosted. I would love to have a 6-burner stove. I would like the extra space, and believe it or not, I actually need more than 4 burners a lot of times. I just cook all the time, and I often have kind of a 3-ring circus like this going, and I would love to have 6 burners, maybe one of these days. That would probably have to go with a larger kitchen. Okay, so while my onions are getting a good start here, I'm going to go ahead and prep the rest of my veggies. So one of the other differences between my pork and veggie unrolls and the typical egg roll in a bowl recipes that you'll find on the internet is that I use a lot more vegetables in mine. Most of them are simply the onion, the cabbage, and carrots. And I just figure this is such a great place for me to throw in tons and tons of vegetables. And they all add flavor and additional vitamins. And there's absolutely no reason not to do it. So here's a box of mushrooms that had fallen to the back of my fridge and have definitely seen better days. But they're not moldy yet. And I washed them off, and they're going in my stir fry, and it'll be perfect. And so we will end up cooking tonight. Let's see, I have this package of cremini mushrooms or baby bellas. They're the same thing. If they were left to get large, they would be those big portobello mushrooms. So I'm just going to slice those up, and then you'll see I'll run my knife through them a couple more times to make them a little smaller. I have one pretty small zucchini in there. I had a few green beans that were out of my garden, and I froze a great big bag of them. I'm not sure exactly what I used the rest of that bag for, but there were just a few left in there, so I will throw those green beans in my stir fry. And okra. I showed you my okra. One of the recipes over the weekend we had okra. And this is some real pretty little okra I got from the farmer's market. And so I'll put some of that in. And then of course we have the traditional carrots and cabbage, and the cabbage will just go in at the very end. Alright, so my mushrooms are ready when my onions are ready. So let me see how they're doing. I really want my onions cooked more, so I definitely give them a head start of about 10 minutes. Turn that back up. My meat is coming along. I'll show it to you in a second. So I'm just chopping it up. I want it to be in little pieces. I mean, what we're going for here is the flavor of an egg roll. And so think about when you get an egg roll, when you used to get an egg roll at a Chinese restaurant, it would have these tiny little pieces of pork in it. And so I want my pork in tiny little pieces. And you'll notice I didn't add any oil to my skillet. Sometimes the ground pork has a good amount of fat, and sometimes it does not. In this particular time, there is hardly any fat, so I'm going to add some. So the two fats I'm cooking with tonight are coconut oil and sesame oil, and they both bring something to the party. The sesame oil has a lot of really unique flavor, and it really adds a lot to this dish. I know that some people are allergic to sesame, and so if you are allergic to sesame, by all means don't use it. It's perfectly fine. There is a lot of other flavor in here. But if you can use the sesame oil, it's not hard to find. You get it at regular grocery stores. Although if you have an Asian market near you, these traditionally Asian ingredients will be typically less expensive at an Asian market. So just like you might go check that out sometime. They have some unique vegetables typically, usually a lot of seafood, good quality seafood. So that can be a fun excursion. My meat's pretty close, so I just want to pay attention to it here for a minute. I'm going to turn my back burner off because my broth is all thawed out. With the wok, you just have to keep an eye on it because I find that it's it's not hard, but a little bit tricky to get it just exactly the right heat. And so I find that I'm pretty regularly adjusting it, turning it up a little, turning it down a little. I want my veggies to caramelize. I want them to cook pretty quickly. I don't want them to get mushy, but I don't want them to burn either. So there's some adjusting involved there. I'm going to go ahead and cut my zucchini since I have a minute. I really needed my big cutting board for this one. So to keep things kind of similarly sized, I cut my zucchini in half and then slice down and make these long zucchini sticks, kind of like this, and then I'll dice them up. Just again to keep them kind of similarly sized to everything else. This isn't a stir fry where, kind of like a typical Chinese stir fry where your veggies can all be in big pieces. You want them kind of small. And the zucchini and the mushrooms can go in at the same time, so I'll just load them up here on the cutting board together, and everybody will go in. And it's pretty close. My onions are almost where I want them to add everything else into the party. If I was in a hurry, I could have put a lid on my meat, and it would have held in some of the heat, and it would have defrosted faster. But I know that it's going to take me a while to cook everything else, so I'm fine with just letting it go without a lid. Just continue to stir it around. It's really browning on the edges of my pan, which is what I want. That's really, really yummy flavor. Okay. I got that one little pink piece left. So let me stir up my onions. Now what you should do with the wok is you kind of move things to the side and then you add your next layers in. So I'm going to put a little bit of sesame oil in here. Then I'm going to add all these vegetables in carefully. And of course I need a little more salt and pepper at this point. I'm just going to let that sit. Okay, that last piece of pork that was frozen is soft enough that I can totally chop it up. So at this point, I'm just letting it all cook through so there's no more pink. And then I'm going to want it to start getting nice and brown. And then I can just turn off the heat and let it sit till I'm ready to add it to my veggies. Everything's going to end up going in that big wok. Honestly, if you enjoy a stir fry, a wok would be a good investment. I'm not one to recommend unnecessary kitchen tools or gadgets, and this is one that I resisted buying for a long time. But I'll tell you what, we do enough stir fries that I really love it, and it's really inexpensive. I think it was $30, and it's this great carbon steel. It gets like a non-stick finish on it, like a good cast iron will, and so it's easy to clean. And I store it in my pantry. It's a little bit big, but this handle comes off, which makes it easier to store. So it's something to consider if you enjoy stir fries. Or you can deep fry in that. I've never done it. We don't deep fry very often. Occasionally I will. But supposedly it works really well for that too. So here I have some carrots. These were already these big kind of crinkle cut sliced ones are the ones my kids like to eat. So I'm just going to slice them up. I just grabbed a handful. You don't have to be particular. You know, stir fry is one of those sort of magical dishes where, like, I have one pepper and one zucchini and a couple of this and a couple of that. By the time you get everything in, you have this gigantic pile of food. It's pretty funny. It always ends up being a lot. And my daughter likes this dish, and so I'll make it for the two of us a lot of times when my husband and son go away for a Boy Scout weekend. And I try, every time, I really try to pare it down and just make enough for the two of us for 2 meals. And it ends up just a monstrous amount of food. I have a hard time scaling it down. Alright, so the carrots are hard, and they will take a little while to cook, so we get those in. Let me stir my meat. I can tell it's getting where I want it to be. And then actually right before I add it into my wok, I will turn the heat back on pretty high, and I'll add a little bit of broth, and it will deglaze the pan. I'll get all those brown bits up off the bottom, and I'll get them into my stir fry, and it will be so good. Alright, so my heat seems to have gone way down, so I'm going to crank it back up again. I don't want these veggies to steam. I want them to stir fry. So the only other one right now I need to get in there, I have my green beans, which I'm just going to throw in just like this. They'll be long, but that's okay. Then they'll stick out. The kids will have their favorites, and then they can choose the ones they want. So these were, I washed them, and I took the stems off, the stem ends, and I blanched them before I froze them. So they're perfectly ready to go. And then I want to grab a handful of okra. I'm not going to use all of this, but just a little bit. Because again, I have so much in there already. So I'm going to cut these little stem ends off and just slice them into rings. And I will let those vegetables that are in there have a go for a little bit, and then I'll make a little well in the center again. Like you saw, I took the onions and pushed them to the side before I added the mushrooms and the zucchini. So I'll let these guys sit down and make contact with the bottom of the wok so they can get a little brown on them. And then we'll be down to the rest of our sauce ingredients, which we just need to prep, and cutting up the cabbage. Again, you can eat those little stem ends on the okra, but I just prefer not to. They're a little more woody, so I take those out. Alright, I want a little more color on these. I'm turning it up to high. I'm getting some liquid in the bottom of my skillet because vegetables are very high in water, so I want to get some of that water evaporated out. so my pineapple, for my pineapple to go in, all I need to do is take the lid off of this. Ooh, my new can opener works well. I loved my old one, but I'm happy with that one. This came from the grocery store, nothing fancy. So this is going to go right into my food processor. Coconut aminos go in at the end. Green onions will garnish the top. This is going to go in my sauce. So I just pour this whole 8-ounce can of crushed pineapple right in there. And now I have garlic. So the recipe called for something like 4 cloves of garlic in the actual stir fry, and then I think 3 in the sauce. And again, I'm just streamlining, and I have like 5 really big cloves of garlic right here. And I'm just crushing them. You just crush them with the flat side of a chef's knife, and it will break open the clove, and you can easily peel off. That one was tough. I say easily, and then I have a hard time. So funny. Peel off that papery skin. And the other thing we're going to put in there is fresh ginger. Here it is. My ginger. It's hiding from me. It smells so good. I just love it. It's so good for your digestion. So the only hard thing about fresh ginger is that it's kind of hard to get to the ginger. You got to get all this papery stuff off. And it's such an oddly shaped ingredient to work with. It's a root. And it just adds great flavor. And if you can't find fresh ginger, don't worry. You can use dried ginger from the spice aisle. But it is not the same. So do look for this in the grocery store. I actually found it at my farmer's market this week. I didn't buy this there. I had it already from the grocery store, but I was surprised to find it at our local market. Let me check on my veggies, see if I can put my okra in yet. Let me show you where we are. Okay, everything is starting to brown and wilted. It's great. So I'm going to make a hole in the center, just push everybody up. Make way for the okra. Okay, here comes the okra. And keep working on that ginger a little bit. Let that sit right down there in the bottom and get some nice browning on it. Add a little salt right there. A little pepper. You taste my pork for seasoning, and I have a cold, so I'm not the best judge right now. Although I can taste the sesame, so that's encouraging that maybe I have a little bit of taste buds coming back. But I will not add salt to my taste tonight because I would probably way over season. So we're just kind of chopping around. You can use a vegetable peeler, but it's so oddly shaped, it's really kind of difficult. And you can use a microplane and grate your ginger, which is what I normally do, but I really decided that I like my pineapple kind of blended up, and I'm not very good at chopping garlic very finely, and I like my garlic really fine. So I just use the food processor and put those guys all in there together. A little bit of liquid is coming out. This little mini Cuisinart has 2 settings. One is chop and one is grind, and I just go back and forth between the 2. I can see a piece of ginger still in there, so we do it a little bit more. Okay, so I'm just going to get all this out of the lid. There's a bunch up in there. And set this to the side. And this will go in at the end with the rest of my sauce ingredients. I still want to give that okra a little time on its own down there. I'm going to add a little sesame oil because it was dry. It needed a little oil. Try to keep everything else up on the edges. It's not going to burn up there. Okay, so I'm going to start working on my cabbage, and I just get out a big old bowl. I didn't use this. Let me put it away before it actually gets dirty. And this is about 2/3 of a large head of cabbage. And I find that that's plenty, really. So I'm just going to take off these outer leaves. These were kind of hanging out from before. And in my original video, I used my food processor, my big food processor, to chop my cabbage, and it got really fine, and I thought that was great. And my dad, my parents who really like Chinese food, I thought, oh, this is such a great dish. I took them some, and my dad's comment was, maybe it would be better if the cabbage was more shredded instead of so finely chopped. Thought, huh, never even thought about that. So let me show you this. Where I cut off some before, it has browned a little bit right there. So I'm just going to cut that off. Okay, and then it's perfectly fine. So I'm not going to waste all of that perfectly good cabbage. So I took his advice and I sliced it just like I'm doing now. And lo and behold, he was right. It was better. And you know what? You might not like it better this way, but we like it better this way. And a couple times I've been kind of quick with it, and I have just cut the cabbage into pretty big pieces. And my kids are like, no, it's a little big. You make it a little smaller next time. So just mess around, experiment with it, and cut it the way you and your family enjoy it. I feel like I say this all the time, but it's just food, you know? And it'll be edible at the end, no matter what size your cabbage is cut into. So don't think too hard about it. And let me stir these veggies. I can see the smoke. It's time to mix everything in. Alright, so I'm going to turn this down at this point because I'm not ready. My veggies look great, but I'm not ready for everything else. So I just want to perk it. So I've got this core, and I'm just sort of cutting sections off around the core to make it more manageable for me to slice. And again, I said it before, I'm not a trained chef or cook in any way, and so there's probably a much better way to do this, but I just have to do what's manageable for me and the way I feel like I can manage cutting this up safely. So that's what I'm doing. I will say it's worth having a knife that you're comfortable with, and my knife is not an expensive knife. This came in a set. It was a wedding gift from my grandparents, and I know that it was not expensive. But I really like the way it feels in my hand. I like the weight of it, and I feel like I can cook safely with it or cut safely with it. So finding a big chef's knife that you're comfortable with is important, and it could be a good investment if you choose one of the fancy ones. That one's kind of tough. Think about all the vegetables you're going to be eating with this. I always feel like when I'm making egg roll in a bowl, there are a couple pieces that are a little big. When I'm making egg roll in a bowl, or my pork and veggie unrolls, as I call them, I can kind of be slack the whole rest of the day and not eat that many veggies because I know I'm going to get so many in my dinner. And then we're done with the cabbage. There's my big bowl of cabbage. If you needed to stretch this, like if you wanted to serve this to guests, you know, maybe have over some of your friends that have 4 or 5 children, you could really feed a huge crowd with this. Just use a whole head of cabbage, use a whole big head of cabbage, and keep everything else the same, and it would feed so many people. And you could even serve it over some rice if you wanted to. I think my huckster is almost home, so I'm gonna, as I promised, I'm gonna turn that heat back on and let that start to heat up again. Then I'll add a little bit of broth to it to deglaze. My veggies are in good shape over here, so I'm going to add my tomato paste. Again, I've just made a little well. And I need 2 tablespoons of tomato paste. This wasn't the sauce, it was making like a sweet and sour sauce. And so again, I'm just adding all those sauce ingredients right into my stir fry. So get that tomato paste in and let that brown a little bit. I'll use my spatula to kind of flatten it out. And it just, again, it's just tomatoes, so it kind of caramelizes the tomatoes in there and deepens the flavor. If you have not used this tomato paste in a tube, I love it because I use it in so many dishes. Just a tablespoon or 2, it adds a nice rich flavor, even in things that aren't typical tomato dish, just like this. And until they created these tubes, you had to just open a can and scoop a little out and then store the can and hope you didn't forget about it before it went bad. So I love these tubes. This is actually Whole Foods brand, and it's cheaper than any others I have found. It's really inexpensive and a great ingredient to keep in your pantry or fridge. Okay, so this is frying up again. So I'm just going to ladle in. Oh, no. Here it is. A little broth. It's about 1/3 of a cup. That's what we want, because that means it's going to loosen up all that yummy stuff on the bottom. And I'm throwing it on the stove, but that's okay. Alright, so what I wanted to happen there, so I'm going to just dump this right in. So now my skillet's clean. Alright, so I'm going to stir all this in. I'm going to turn my temperature back up to almost high. So I'm stirring in my tomato paste and my meat. If I will use my 2 tools, I probably won't spill quite as much. Really toss it around. There's really no point in tasting it at this stage because I'm going to add so much more flavor I'm going to add more volume with my cabbage that has no seasoning whatsoever. But then I'm going to add all of this flavor with my pineapple and ginger and garlic and my broth, which is really good rich broth and pretty highly seasoned, and my coconut aminos. So I'm going to wait till the end when I'm ready to serve it, and then I'll taste it and see if I need to adjust the salt and pepper, but I probably won't, like I said, because I have a cold and I can't taste it very well. Okay, so this is all mixed in. And I'm going to start adding my sauce ingredients. Toss this in. So the liquid from that pineapple and the ginger and the garlic will sort of deglaze my wok to help get some of that yummy flavor up. Mix that in. Get all of that incorporated, and then I'll start adding my cabbage. depending on how much cabbage you have. And toss that in. It'll wilt pretty fast. But I want some cabbage in the end to be just barely cooked. So I'll put this whole dish on hold till my husband walks in the door. And then when he's here, I'll add the rest of the cabbage and the aminos. Let that go. I'm going to ladle in a little more broth. I'm going to kind of go around the edges and do glaze. It's not going to make it too runny because that broth is so nice and full of gelatin that it will actually add a richness and a silkiness to my dish. I've talked to you before about my histamine intolerance that really keeps me from eating leftovers, but this is one dish that I can usually eat, and I have some supplements that I take that will help me deal with some of the histamine when I eat leftovers, and I just take some of those supplements, and it's so good leftover. I just love it. So I'm making it right now, and I'm about to eat it for dinner, and I'm already looking forward to having it for lunch again tomorrow. Alright, so we're just cranking away. That cabbage is getting nice and soft. I am going to taste it because I can't resist. It needs a clean one. And just see if I can tell how we stand with seasoning at all. It's probably fine. It tastes to me like it needs some salt. But I'll wait and let my husband taste it when he gets home before I add any more to it. And the aminos actually are pretty salty, so I'll add that in as well. And but I can taste the ginger and the garlic and the sesame, so I'm encouraged by that. Some brands of sesame oil that I have purchased have said to store in the fridge, and others have said that that was not necessary. So make sure you read the instructions on your sesame oil. Okay, so I got a green onion here. Boy, I'm going out with a friend tonight. We've been doing a Bible study, or I guess a book study, about teenagers. If you have teenagers, or I think this book would be great for parents of any age children. The book is called Age of Opportunity by Paul Tripp, yeah. And it is awesome. It's been so eye-opening and just encouraging, and I love it. And anyway, so we've been going through this book chapter by chapter, and we're actually on our last chapter tonight, but I am going to have some dragon breath with the onions and the garlic, and not being able to have a mint or gum. I'll brush my teeth, but you know, onions and garlic, they carry pretty far, so I'm sorry, dear friend. All right, I know the hubster has got to be home any second. But regardless, I'm not going to start this until he's here. Okay, he just walked in the door, so I can add the rest of my cabbage. I turn my heat back up to almost high. Toss this around carefully. Okay, and I want about between a quarter and a third of a cup of my coconut aminos. And I have one bottle here. This one escaped in the fridge, I guess. So I got just a little bit left in here. So again, I'm going to kind of pour it around the edges to glaze my wok. And this guy gets recycled. And I'm going to add a little more. And no, I'm not measuring. I kind of look at where my level is in the bottle and then just kind of eyeball. This is one of those things that it would be really hard to add too much. My daughter loves it. She likes to pour it on additionally at the table. It does have a great flavor. It's our soy sauce alternative for paleo cooking. And there we are. I want to serve it right now, but I need him to come and taste it to see if I need to add more salt. Alright, so he says it's perfect, just like me. Okay, so over here it comes. And I'll dish it up for you. I want you to just see how pretty this is. Can you see how nice and pretty this is? Okay, so all I do, everybody just gets a nice big serving in a bowl. Like I said, sometimes I'll serve this with white rice, but we had rice with our jambalaya, we had rice with our salsa chicken. Of course, I didn't have any, but the family did. So I'm not giving them any rice tonight. If they need some additional carbs, I'm sure they'll find something sweet to eat. And then I already snipped off the little ends of my green onion, and then I'll just use my kitchen scissors to cut some more. Nice little garnish on top. And there you have it. Our paleo pork and veggie unrolls, totally acceptable for the Whole30, packed full of flavor and veggies, and super duper satisfying. If you haven't tried any of the other recipes that I've been posting up for Whole30, try this one. It is a little bit more involved, but you will love it. It's so flavorful, and you'll eat it for days. If that's something that you want to just cook once and eat for 5 days, this is the dish. It will be perfect. So I hope you enjoyed this, and I'm looking forward to seeing you again tomorrow for day 17. Thanks, everybody.